Hey, I want to share my testimony. When I was 23 years old, I was diagnosed with something called Guillain-Barré syndrome. If you look it up on Google, it is easier to put in GBS, like girl, boy, Sam, GBS, Guillain-Barré syndrome. It's basically when your immune system attacks your nervous system and causes paralysis throughout your body. You know, your nervous system controls everything from head to toe, touch, smell, all your senses. And I had this, and I went into the hospital, and I'll never forget when I went in. It was December 8th of 2008, and when I went in, I was fine. I drove into the hospital, things felt good, and the doctor said, we don't know exactly what's wrong, but we're gonna run some tests on you. And when they was running some tests, everything, you know, I'm in there for a couple of days, and then after like a day or two, I had to go to the bathroom, and I went to the bathroom, and I was kind of weak. Like my body just felt weak, like it was a hard, I was weak, like I was drowsy. And I went to the bathroom, and then I noticed that I couldn't stand up to pee, which felt weird. And I'm like, okay, my legs not strong enough to stand up to pee. So I sat down on the toilet to pee, and when I was finished, I couldn't stand up. And when I realized that I couldn't stand up, I called my girlfriend into the room. She helped me stand up, and you know, we kind of laughed about it. She pulled up my pants, and we went back to the hospital bed. By the next morning, my legs literally stopped working, and I was rushed to ICU. Before you know it, it literally started from my feet all the way up into my whole body. And then my feet was gone, my legs was gone. It started affecting my respiratory system. I was on a ventilator. I was in ICU. I was literally just there, you know what I mean? Like I was breathing from a tube at this point. And the doctors didn't know if my lungs was going to ever recover. They were considering them putting me onto a trach. I don't know if you're familiar with a trach or not. A trach is something when they put a hole right here in your throat. I had a ventilator that was going in my mouth and through my throat, but this would have been a trach that went in here. And most of the times when you get trachs, those you be stuck on those for a while. After doctors determined that I didn't need the trach, they pulled it out. I literally went 7 days without hearing my voice. I think it was a little bit over 7 days. And I don't know if you've ever been in a position where you couldn't talk. I was fully conscious, my mind worked. I can hear everything that was going on around me. I just couldn't talk. You know, I had this tube going down my throat, and this was right before Christmas. And they actually pulled the tube out of my throat on Christmas, and after, you know, it being in there for so long, I wonder if I could talk. So I was like, wow, this would be the first time after a week I'll be able to hear myself say something. What would be the first thing I would want to say? And the first thing that came to my mind, my uncle once told me, he said, if you can't think of anything to say, just call on the name of the Lord. So I said Jesus. That was the first thing that came out of my mouth when the trach was pulled out. But by this point, you know, things started to look better, which I thought it was going to be better. They moved me to the rehab unit into the hospital, and basically I didn't need that ICU treatment anymore, the intensive care. And I started to regain strength in my upper body, and regaining that strength in my upper body, it kind of like stopped like right at my waist. It was almost if you was to draw a line, everything down from my waist below, I couldn't feel. It was numb. I couldn't use the bathroom. They would come and trach the urine out of me, basically. I don't know if you're familiar with it. They're just sticking a tube up my penis to relieve me of all my urine. I felt that pain. But I was in there, and the doctors told me, Jonathan, it's a great chance that you will never walk again. And you know, I was down. I was in some deep places. Yeah, I don't know if you've seen me or met me in person. You know, I'm not the smallest person. 6'4", about 215. And you know, I played basketball. You know, basketball was a big part of my life, and it kept me out of trouble. And I met a lot of cool people, interesting people playing basketball. So basketball was everything to me. And at this time I had a son who was about 1 year old, and I always grew up wanting to play basketball with him. So to hear that news that I would never walk again, it really was a shock to my system. It really just blew me away. And I had a friend that the Lord put a word in him, that he was in the hospital, and the doctor came in and said that his name is Josh Hill. Shout out to Josh Hill. I told him a million times, I'll never be able to tell him enough. Thank you for allowing the Lord to use you. But he prophesied into my life in that moment. He said, forget her, you'll be back playing basketball again. And I don't know if you understand the depth of what this meant. At this time, at my height, I was only about 140 pounds, probably. Yeah, about 140 pounds, maybe 145, maybe 150 pounds. I was extremely skinny at my height, extremely skinny. I don't know if you know somebody that's like 6'4", 145 pounds, but they are really, that's a tiny person. And my legs not working. I can't feel nobody. My feet, I'm extremely ticklish. Don't touch my feet. So to be in a place where I couldn't feel any of that, and he's prophesying, saying that, and allowing the Lord to use him to speak that word into my life was really amazing. Yeah, you know, and it got to a point where I was really depressed. You know, if you even dive into my book, I wrote about all the details in my book. I attempted suicide because I was tired of being in the hospital. I didn't leave the hospital until after 4 months. I spent December of 08, 09, January, February, and March of 09 in the hospital. So that means I spent Christmas, New Year's, I watched the Super Bowl in the hospital, Valentine's Day. My mother, she passed in 06, and her birthday is in February, so I normally would celebrate her birthday as well. So it was really, really hard times right there, especially that time of year. You already know most people go through stress for the holidays anyway, but being in there where you tied down and you're never going to walk again, you know, those things like that, it really messed with my mind and my spirit. And I completely gave up on God, and I was just like, Lord, why me? Why you do this to me, Lord? Why you do this to me? I didn't deserve anything. You know, at this point, I didn't even drink till I was 21, and I was 23 at the time. So when I first started drinking, it was like wine and amaretto sours and small drinks like that. And I wasn't even smoking. I hadn't even tried hookah, no cigarette, no black and mild. I hadn't tried none of that stuff. So to me, to be going through something like that was completely confusing to me. I didn't understand. Like, Lord, why'd you, it didn't make sense, you know? So I kind of like I'm gonna say I gave up on God. I gave up on God. And I grew up in a church. I lived right across the street from the church. I was in the usher board at a time. I was a youth president. I was in the youth choir. I grew up non-denominational. I was in the church. I was in the body of Christ, but at this point, it didn't make sense. It really didn't make sense for all this to be happening to me. You know, I feel like I didn't do anything that the average 22, 23-year-old young man was out there doing. And I didn't even go to a club till I was 21. Yeah, it was real confusing and hard for me. But through all of it, I had made a promise to God. I said, God, if you restore my legs, if you allow me the ability to start back walking again, Lord, I'll do whatever you want. I got desperate. I got, you know, I couldn't get on my knees, but I got to that place of submission to where I told God, I said, I done tried to kill myself. It didn't work. I done got to a point where anything I thought about on my own personal self, I was like, there's nothing I can do. But I got back to the Lord. It reminds me of Jonah when he he technically tried to commit suicide when a storm was going. I don't know if you're familiar with the story of Jonah, but when he was trying to run away from what God told him to do, he jumped on his ship, and while he was on the ship, a big storm ended up happening, and he was calm. When I say he was extremely calm, he was easy peasy, and all the people on the boat was just like, oh my gosh, just panicking, this storm is getting ready to take us out, blah blah blah. You know who done upset their God? Y'all need to pray to everybody that y'all believe in, because we ain't gonna make it through this. And Jonah was like, that's me, that's my God. My God is doing this because he's upset at me. If you throw me overboard, I promise you the storm is going to stop. And little you know, they threw him overboard and the storm stopped. but there was a praise and worship that was just within that, because they all then started to believe in the God that Jonah worshiped, who is Yahweh, the God of Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. They all started to worship him because they realized that he controls the sea. What God controls the sea, the wind, you know what I mean? So then just within that, so within his suicide attempt, he then, God then led other people back to his salvation. So that was amazing. But back to the story, I felt like I got to a place of submission where I was like, okay, God, what now? Attempted suicide, you know, capture me up in this well. That's what ended up happening to Jonah. And the word says a big fish. It ended up happening to me, and I'm like, all right, I can't kill myself. What do you want? Whatever it is you want, I'll do it. And a couple days later, I had this crazy dream, and I don't know if you ever had this dream before. Most people have, but you have a dream that you got to use the bathroom, you got to pee, and in your dream you get up and you go to the bathroom, and you end up peeing. But the thing is that in that dream, you normally end up peeing on yourself because you're really not in a bathroom. So I had this dream. Oh, I got to use the bathroom. I got to pee. I felt the sensation to go pee. Remember, I couldn't even feel the sensation to pee normally. I've never thought about that until right now as I'm saying it out loud. That's a brand new revelation. This was in 2009, and now it's 2025. I had a sensation to pee, which I had never felt while I was